Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to talk to you about one of the most powerful skills any human being can ever master, the ability to control your emotions. We live in a world full of triggers. Someone cuts you off in traffic and your blood boils. You receive criticism at work and it ruins your entire day. A relationship falls apart and suddenly life feels like it's crashing down. Emotions are not bad. In fact, they are a sign that you're alive, but the key is not to suppress them, it's to master them. You must learn how to feel your emotions without letting them control your actions. Controlling your emotions doesn't mean pretending not to care. It means responding with wisdom instead of reacting with impulse. It means choosing peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, and growth over destruction. You cannot control what you do not recognize. That is the truth. When it comes to emotions, so many people live each day unaware of what's truly driving their reactions, their decisions, and their relationships. Emotional control doesn't begin with suppression or denial, it begins with awareness. The moment you become conscious of your emotions, you create the space needed to take control of them rather than be controlled by them. Most people are stuck in emotional autopilot. Something happens. Maybe someone says something rude or life throws a curveball, and before they know it, they're angry, panicked, or deeply hurt. They lash out, withdraw, or make a decision they later regret because they never paused long enough to even ask, what am I feeling right now? Emotional awareness is about becoming present. It's about taking that pause to step out of the reaction and step into observation. You see, emotions don't just appear out of nowhere. They rise from within, usually in response to our thoughts, beliefs, or interpretations. But if we don't notice them as they surface, they gain strength, like a wave building momentum. Without awareness, we get swept away by that wave. With awareness, we can choose whether to surf it, ride it out, or let it pass without letting it consume us. Becoming emotionally aware doesn't mean judging yourself for feeling a certain way. It means being honest. It means noticing when you're irritated rather than pretending you're fine. It means acknowledging sadness instead of covering it up with distractions. It means catching anxiety before it turns into a panic spiral. It's not weakness to admit your emotions. It's wisdom. And only when you name them can you begin to tame them. Think of emotional awareness like the dashboard in your car. If a warning light comes on, you don't smash it with a hammer to make it go away. You pay attention to it, you find out what's going on under the hood. Emotions are your inner warning lights. Anger might be a sign your boundaries have been crossed. Fear might be telling you there's risk ahead, or perhaps just uncertainty. Guilt might be calling you back into alignment with your values. These signals aren't enemies, they're information. But without awareness, we misinterpret them. We treat every discomfort as danger. We react instead of respond. And the cost: damaged relationships, poor decisions, regret. When you're emotionally unaware, you're not really in charge of your life, your emotions are. So how do you build this awareness? Start with mindfulness. Pay attention to your body. Emotions show up physically: tight chest, clenched jaw, racing heart, stomach knots. Your body speaks the emotional truth often before your mind catches up. Tune into it. Practice checking in with yourself throughout the day. Ask, what am I feeling right now? And don't just settle for I'm fine or I'm okay. Go deeper. Am I irritated? Am I disappointed? Am I feeling lonely, overlooked, anxious, joyful, uncertain? Labeling your emotions precisely is a powerful step. Research shows that when we name our emotions, we activate parts of the brain that calm the emotional center. Simply saying to yourself, this is frustration or this is sadness, brings a level of calm and control. It gives you the perspective needed to decide what to do next rather than being caught in the emotional storm. Journaling is another effective tool. Writing down what you're feeling each day helps you track emotional patterns. Maybe you notice that you often feel anxious on Sunday evenings, or that you're quick to anger when you're hungry or sleep deprived. This insight allows you to predict and prepare for emotional triggers rather than be surprised by them. Also, watch your thoughts. Emotions are often reactions to what you think about a situation, not the situation itself. For instance, two people can lose their job. One feels devastated, believing they've failed and will never recover. The other feels challenged, believing it's an opportunity to start fresh. Same event, different thoughts, completely different emotions. By becoming aware of your thoughts, you gain leverage over your emotions. Emotional awareness also means being honest about the impact of your past. Sometimes Your current emotional response isn't just about what's happening right now. It's about a memory, a trauma, or a belief rooted in years of experience. That's why a small comment might trigger a big reaction. The more you explore your emotional history, the more freedom you gain in your emotional present. Another key point, don't rush this process. Awareness is a muscle. You won't be perfect at it. You might still get caught off guard. You'll still feel things deeply. That's okay. The goal isn't to be emotionless. It's to be emotionally wise, to know what you're feeling, why you're feeling it, and what your best response is. When you become emotionally aware, something amazing happens. You begin to feel more in control, more grounded, more powerful. You're not swayed as easily by the moods of others. You're not derailed by every difficult moment. You gain clarity in your relationships and confidence in your decisions. You begin to trust yourself, not because you never feel, but because you've learned how to feel without falling apart. That is the foundation of emotional control, not suppression, not avoidance, awareness. And from awareness, everything else becomes possible. When emotions rise, our first instinct is often to act immediately. We shout when we're angry. We shut down when we're hurt. We run when we're afraid. But emotional control begins with one powerful discipline, the pause. That small moment between stimulus and response is where our true strength lies. It may seem like nothing, just a breath or a heartbeat, but it is everything. It is the difference between reacting impulsively and responding intentionally. Think of a moment in your life when you said or did something you later regretted. Most likely it was because you acted without pausing. You were overwhelmed, you felt cornered, you were emotionally flooded, and your brain reacted like it was under attack. But when we learn to pause, even for just a few seconds, we reclaim control. We take a breath instead of throwing a punch. We listen instead of yelling. We think instead of lashing out. That pause doesn't come naturally at first. It's a practice. But with repetition, it becomes a habit. And with habit, it becomes character. The pause is powerful because it gives us a chance to check in with ourselves before we project our emotions onto others. Imagine you're in a heated conversation. Emotions rise fast. You feel your heart beating quicker, your jaw tightening, your voice ready to shout. In that moment, pausing can feel impossible, but it's exactly what's needed. You stop, you breathe, you let the wave pass. That single moment of stillness allows you to step back and see things more clearly. It's not weakness, it's not submission. It's leadership over yourself. People often confuse emotional control with emotion suppression. But the pause doesn't mean ignoring how you feel. It means honoring your emotions without letting them take over your behavior. You're still angry. You're still hurt. You still feel that fear. But you choose not to be a slave to it. You choose to act from clarity, not chaos. The science supports this. When emotions rise, especially intense ones like anger or fear, the amygdala, the brain's emotional center, activates, floods the body with stress hormones, and shuts down the rational thinking part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex. That's why you might say something in the heat of the moment that you'd never say calmly. The pause allows the rational part of your brain to re-engage. It helps reset your nervous system so you're not driven by adrenaline, but by intention. The more you practice pausing, the more emotionally intelligent you become. Instead of reacting to every emotional impulse, you begin to respond with insight. For example, someone criticizes you, and your first reaction is to get defensive or attack. But when you pause, you can ask yourself, why am I triggered by this? Is there truth in what they're saying, or is this about something deeper? That brief reflection helps you choose a better response, maybe to ask for clarity, maybe to set a boundary, or maybe to simply walk away with dignity. In relationships, the skill is invaluable. How many arguments escalate, not because of what was said, but because of how it was said? A pause could stop an entire conflict from exploding. It's not about holding back how you feel, it's about choosing the right time and way to express it. Timing can turn conflict into connection, misunderstanding into understanding. Pausing also helps you align your actions with your values. When you react instantly, you're often acting from habit or pain, not purpose. But when you pause, you remember who you want to be. Do you want to be someone who always has to win the argument, or someone who preserves peace? Do you want to be someone who feeds the drama, or someone who diffuses it? That pause gives you the room to choose the higher road. One of the best ways to train to pause is through breath. Your breath is always with you. When you feel emotions start to surge, turn your focus inward. Inhale deeply, exhale slowly. Even just 3 deep breaths can calm your nervous system enough to think more clearly. Seems too simple, but it's profoundly effective. Breath grounds you in the present, where you can think, decide, and lead. Another tool is to mentally rehearse the pause. Visualize situations that typically trigger you. Maybe a certain person, a stressful meeting, a traffic jam. Imagine yourself feeling the emotion rising. Then visualize yourself pausing, breathing, and choosing your response. Rehearsing this mentally strengthens your ability to do it in real life. Of course, you won't always get it right. You'll still react sometimes. You'll still speak too quickly or act too harshly. That's okay. Growth is not about perfection. It's about progression. Every time you catch yourself, every time you choose the pause, you're rewiring your brain. You're building emotional strength one moment at a time, and the ripple effect is incredible. When you start responding instead of reacting, people around you feel safer, more respected, and more willing to engage. You earn more trust, you build deeper relationships, and you gain influence, not by dominating others, but by mastering yourself. In the end, it's not about never feeling anger, fear, or pain. It's about not letting those emotions drive the car. You're still on the journey. Emotions can be passengers, even guides, but you stay in the driver's seat. You steer. You choose the direction. So the next time life provokes you, the next time someone tests your patience or pain surges through your chest, remember the pause. That simple sacred space between emotion and action. That's where wisdom lives. That's where peace begins. And that's where the real you, strong, composed, and conscious, gets to lead. Emotions are not enemies. They are messengers, signals from within that something important is happening. Yet so often people treat emotions like problems to be avoided, suppressed, or ignored. In truth, emotions are valuable guides if we know how to listen without letting them lead us off course. Emotional mastery does not mean you no longer feel. It means you feel fully, interpret clearly, and respond wisely. The key lies in understanding that emotions are messengers, not masters. Let's think about anger, one of the most intense emotions we experience. When anger arises, it usually points to something that feels unjust or threatening. Maybe a boundary was crossed, maybe your voice wasn't heard, maybe a value you care about was violated. The anger itself is not the problem. How you handle it is. If you explode, the message gets lost in the chaos. But if you listen to what the anger is telling you, I need to stand up for myself. This isn't okay, or something important is being threatened. You can act constructively. That's the difference between being owned by anger and using it as information. The same goes for fear. Fear shows up when there's uncertainty, when the outcome isn't clear, or when your safety feels compromised. It could be fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of change. Most people run from fear or freeze in front of it. But when you treat fear as a messenger, you stop and ask, what is this fear trying to protect me from? Is the threat real or imagined? Is it warning me or is it limiting me? That shift transforms fear from a prison into a compass. It gives you the clarity to move forward wisely, not recklessly and not paralyzed. Sadness also carries deep meaning. It tells you what you love, what you miss, what you hope for. It points to loss, disconnection, or unmet expectations. Rather than bury sadness or numb it with distractions, listen to it. Let it teach you. Sadness is not weakness. It is evidence that you care. And when you honor it instead of avoiding it, you begin to heal. It becomes a bridge to deeper understanding and compassion, not only for yourself, but for others. The problem is, most people never slow down long enough to ask what their emotions are trying to say. They react instinctively, emotionally, and often destructively. They assume the emotion is the master and must be obeyed. But emotions were never meant to drive. They were meant to guide. You are the driver. You decide the direction. The emotion is just the indicator light flashing on the dashboard. Ignore it, and you might miss something critical. Obey it blindly, and you might crash. But observe it, understand it, and choose your response, and you grow. This approach requires self-awareness, reflection, and a willingness to be honest. Not every emotion tells the truth. Sometimes emotions are based on distorted beliefs, old wounds, or false assumptions. That's why it's important not to react immediately. Instead, ask, is what I'm feeling accurate to this moment, or is it being influenced by my past? Is this emotion asking me to protect myself, or is it limiting me unnecessarily? Even positive emotions are messengers. Joy tells you where your passions lie. Gratitude reminds you of your blessings. Inspiration shows you your potential. When you pay attention to these emotions, you learn what nourishes your soul. You discover who you are at your best. That's just as important as learning from pain. But to get the message, you must slow down. In a fast-paced world that rewards instant reactions, slowing down is a radical act. It means taking the time to reflect instead of reacting. It means journaling about your emotions, meditating to observe them, or talking them through with someone you trust. All of these practices give you space to interpret the message instead of being consumed by the emotion itself. There's wisdom in every emotion, even the uncomfortable ones, especially the uncomfortable ones. The emotions you try to avoid the most often carry the most powerful messages. If you're willing to feel them, you'll grow. If you bury them, they'll grow stronger underground until they surface in ways you can't control. So the next time you feel an emotion, whether it's rage, fear, joy, or sorrow, pause and listen. What is it trying to tell you? What does it want you to understand, to address, to change? And then thank it. Yes, even the hard ones. Thank the anger for showing you your boundaries. Thank the fear for trying to protect you. Thank the sadness for reminding you that you cared. And then decide how you want to respond, not react. That's where your power lies, not in suppressing emotions, not in surrendering to them either, but in learning from them and choosing your path forward with intention. When you treat emotions as messengers, you build a deeper relationship with yourself. You begin to understand your needs, your triggers, your patterns. You grow in maturity, wisdom, and inner strength. People will notice you'll become more grounded, more compassionate, and more capable under pressure. You won't be thrown off course by every mood swing or emotional wave. Instead, you'll stand firm, centered, steady. That kind of presence is rare and powerful. Remember, emotions are not masters. They don't get to dictate your life. They don't define who you are. They're visitors, each with a message to deliver. Listen, learn, then let them pass. You'll still feel deeply, but you'll respond powerfully. You'll live with clarity instead of confusion. And that's what emotional intelligence is really about. Not avoiding emotions, but understanding them, mastering them, and using their messages to shape a stronger, wiser you. You are not your emotions. This truth, when fully understood, changes everything. So many people live their lives believing they are what they feel. I'm angry, I'm anxious, I'm broken, they say, as if their emotions define them. But emotions are just experiences. They come and go like waves. You, however, are the ocean beneath the waves. You are the observer of the emotion, not the emotion itself. This perspective is the beginning of emotional freedom. When you feel overwhelmed, it can seem like the emotion has taken over completely, but if you pause for just a moment and say to yourself, I am noticing that I feel angry, instead of I am angry, you immediately create a gap. That small shift in language creates space between you and the emotion. It turns you from a reactor into a responder. You move from identification to observation. And in that space, you find your power. Think about how children react. When they're sad or angry, it's as if that emotion is their entire world. They haven't yet developed the awareness to separate what they feel from who they are. But emotional maturity comes when you start to realize you have emotions. You are not those emotions. This doesn't make emotions less valid. It just means they don't control your identity or dictate your choices. When you begin to see your emotions as passing states rather than permanent traits, you stop judging yourself so harshly. You can feel fear without thinking you're weak. You can feel sadness without believing you're broken. You can feel anger without assuming you're a bad person. These are simply human experiences. Everyone feels them. The difference between emotional chaos and emotional control is your ability to witness these emotions without attaching your identity to them. You might ask, but how can I stop emotions from taking over? The answer is mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of observing your thoughts and feelings without judgment. When you sit with your emotion, really sit with it, and allow it to be there without running from it or acting on it, you begin to realize that emotions are just energy moving through you. They rise, peak, and fall. If you let them pass without grabbing onto them or pushing them away, they dissolve much faster than you think. Most of the time, the real suffering comes not from the emotion itself, but from the resistance to it. When you fight an emotion, deny it, or judge it, you make it stronger. But when you allow it to exist and observe it like a passing cloud in the sky, it loses its grip. You are still steady, watching the storm pass without being swept away by it. That's the essence of emotional intelligence, feeling everything but acting with wisdom. There's also great peace in realizing that emotions are temporary. No matter how intense the feeling is, pain, grief, anxiety, it will not last forever. It might return in waves. It might come and go, but it is not permanent. And if it's not permanent, it doesn't define you. You can be someone who feels sadness, but you are not sadness. You can experience anxiety, but you are not anxiety. This simple distinction gives you room to breathe and the strength to move forward, even in difficult times. This perspective also helps you in your relationships. When someone else is acting out emotionally, you don't have to take it personally. You can say, they're experiencing anger rather than they are angry at me because I'm not good enough. You see their emotion for what it is, a passing state, not a permanent truth. This helps you respond with compassion instead of defensiveness. You become a calming presence rather than a contributor to the chaos. Self-talk plays a huge role in this practice. Pay attention to the words you use when you describe what you're going through. Instead of saying, I'm a mess, say, I'm having a tough day. Instead of I'm a failure, say, I'm feeling discouraged. The more you separate your identity from the emotion, the more empowered you become. This isn't denial, it's clarity. You're not lying to yourself, you're telling the deeper truth. Another way to build this habit is through meditation. When you meditate, especially with the intention of observing your thoughts and emotions, you train your mind to sit in that place of awareness. You watch your emotions rise and fall like waves. You might feel restlessness, boredom, even frustration, but instead of reacting, you breathe through it, you witness it, and in doing so, you strengthen your capacity to do the same in everyday life. Life will always bring moments that trigger emotions, joy, sorrow, rage, fear. But emotional mastery means you don't have to ride every wave to the shore. You can choose which ones to follow and which to let pass. You can choose when to speak and when to stay silent, when to express and when to hold. And all of that starts with remembering this truth. You are the sky. Your emotions are just the weather. No storm lasts forever. No emotion defines you. You are more than what you feel. You are the one who sees, who understands, who chooses. You are the calm behind the chaos, the clarity behind the confusion. And when you live from that place, your entire experience changes. You stop fearing your emotions. You start learning from them. You stop reacting. You begin leading from within. Your physical body and emotional state are more connected than most people realize. When you're exhausted, undernourished, or physically tense, even the smallest emotional disturbance can feel overwhelming. On the other hand, when your body is cared for, well-rested, properly fueled, and strong, emotional challenges become easier to manage. Emotional control doesn't begin only in the mind. It often begins in the body. If you want to master your emotions, you must also master your physical state. Think about how you feel after a poor night's sleep. Your patience wears thin. You become more irritable. You're more reactive to small stressors. That's not just in your imagination, it's biology. Sleep is crucial for emotional regulation. When you're well rested, the brain functions better. The prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for rational thinking, planning, and self-control, stays more active. But when you're sleep deprived, your brain shifts into survival mode, giving more power to the amygdala, the emotional center of the brain. This means that when you don't sleep enough, you're literally wired to be more emotional and less rational. The same principle applies to nutrition. Your brain and body rely on the nutrients you consume to regulate hormones, maintain mood, and support stable energy levels. When your blood sugar crashes because you skipped a meal or filled up on processed foods, your mood often crashes with it. Irritability, anxiety, and fatigue can all be traced back to poor eating habits. A balanced diet that includes proteins, complex carbohydrates, healthy fats, and hydration supports both your physical and emotional balance. It's not just about avoiding illness, it's about maintaining stability, energy, and resilience. Physical movement is another powerful tool for emotional control. Exercise isn't only for building muscles or burning calories, it's a direct pathway to emotional stability. When you move your body, your brain releases endorphins, the feel-good chemicals that reduce pain and elevate mood. Regular physical activity also helps reduce cortisol, the stress hormone, and promotes better sleep. Whether it's a brisk walk, a gym workout, yoga, or dancing in your living room, movement changes your state. When your body shifts, your emotions often follow. There's also the matter of posture and breathing. The way you carry your body sends messages to your brain. Slouched shoulders and shallow breathing can signal stress or sadness. But standing tall, shoulders back, and taking deep, intentional breaths tells your body and brain that you are safe, strong, and in control. This isn't just psychological, it's physiological. Controlled breathing techniques like deep belly breathing or box breathing activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps you calm down and regain composure. In moments of emotional overwhelm, breathing deeply and mindfully for even 1 minute can reset your emotional state. Many people try to solve emotional problems only through thinking, but thinking alone, especially in a tired or stressed body, often leads to overthinking, anxiety, and paralysis. The body holds emotions. Stress and trauma live in your muscles, your gut, your posture. If you never address the physical side, the emotional side becomes harder to manage. That's why practices like stretching, breath work, cold showers, grounding exercises, and even body scans can be incredibly effective tools for regaining emotional control. It's also important to create daily rituals that support both physical and emotional well-being. Morning routines that include movement, hydration, sunlight, and moments of calm set the tone for the day. Evening routines that prioritize relaxation and good sleep hygiene help the mind unwind and reset. These small habits, when done consistently, build a foundation of strength, and from that foundation, emotional balance becomes easier to achieve and maintain. Your environment matters too. If your physical surroundings are cluttered, chaotic, or draining, they contribute to internal stress. Organizing your space, adding elements of calm like plants, soothing colors, or soft lighting can positively affect your nervous system. You are constantly receiving signals from your environment, and when those signals are calming, your internal state benefits. Another overlooked element is physical connection. Human beings are wired for touch and connection. A hug, a hand on the shoulder, a shared laugh, all of these have real physiological effects. They release oxytocin, the bonding hormone, which reduces stress and increases feelings of safety and calm. Even spending time with a pet or being in nature can provide grounding and regulate emotions. The body responds to connection, and that connection helps create emotional stability. It's also worth mentioning that many mental health conditions like depression and anxiety have physical components. Chronic inflammation, hormonal imbalances, gut health, these all play a role. Taking care of your body isn't just a wellness trend, it's essential. Emotional resilience isn't something you build only through willpower, it's also something you build through care, rest, movement, and nourishment. So when you feel overwhelmed emotionally, don't start only with your thoughts. Start with your body. Have you eaten? Have you slept? Have you moved today? Have you hydrated? Have you taken a moment to breathe? You'd be surprised how many emotional storms can be calmed with a short nap, a walk in the fresh air, or a glass of water. It may sound simple, but simplicity doesn't mean it's not powerful. To be emotionally strong, you must treat your body like an ally, not an afterthought. You must build habits that support strength, clarity, and recovery. You must see the body not as separate from the mind, but as a partner in the emotional journey. Because when your body is steady, your emotions don't have to shout for your attention. They can whisper, and you'll still hear them. And when you respond from a place of balance, you lead your life with greater power, peace, and presence. Emotional control is not about shutting down how you feel. It's about creating the physical foundation that allows you to feel fully without falling apart. It's about honoring the wisdom of the body, respecting its signals, and using its strength to anchor your emotional world. When you master your body, you strengthen your emotional core, and from there you can weather anything life sends your way. Emotional control is not about perfection, it's about progress. It's not about always getting it right, but about trying again when you get it wrong. The truth is, no matter how much you practice awareness, no matter how often you pause, no matter how well you take care of your body, there will still be moments when your emotions get the best of you. That's part of being human. What truly defines your emotional strength is not how perfectly you control your feelings, but how consistently you commit to growth. You will have days when anger takes over, when fear speaks louder than reason, when sadness overwhelms your heart. You will say things you wish you hadn't. You'll react too fast, shut down too quickly, or hold on to feelings longer than you should. But that does not mean you've failed. It means you're in the process of learning. Emotional mastery isn't a destination you arrive at, it's a path you walk every day. Forgiving yourself when you stumble is not weakness, it's wisdom. Too often, people beat themselves up for not having complete control. They fall into shame, guilt, or discouragement. But the real damage doesn't come from the emotion. It comes from what we do to ourselves afterward. Instead of learning from the moment, we judge ourselves. Instead of adjusting, we withdraw. That cycle keeps us stuck. But if we can meet our imperfections with compassion, we create the space to grow stronger. The truth is, growth doesn't come from comfort. It comes from challenge. And emotional growth is no different. You become more emotionally intelligent, not because everything is going well, but because you keep showing up when it's hard. You reflect after the argument. You apologize when you were reactive. You journal about why something triggered you. You ask for help when you feel lost. You try again the next day, and the next, and the next. That commitment is what shapes your emotional character. Think of emotional control like physical fitness. You don't expect to lift heavy weights the first day in the gym. You start with what you can manage. You build muscle over time. Some days are harder than others. Some days you feel like quitting. But the ones who grow are the ones who stay consistent. The same is true for your emotional muscles. They don't grow because you read a book or meditate once. They grow because you practice, because you notice your patterns, because you stay committed even when it's uncomfortable. That's why daily habits matter. Small practices, done consistently, build emotional resilience over time. Taking a few minutes each day to check in with your feelings, to reflect on how you responded to challenges, to breathe deeply or stretch your body, all of it adds up. These habits may not seem impressive in the moment, but they're powerful. They form the foundation you rely on when life gets intense. And they remind you you're not trying to be perfect, you're trying to be present, honest, and aware. You also grow when you surround yourself with people who value emotional growth. Community matters. Relationships that reflect, challenge, and support you are a mirror for your own development. Choose to be around people who hold themselves accountable, who speak with intention, who forgive freely and strive to understand. Their energy, their mindset, their standards, they all influence yours. Emotional mastery is contagious when shared in the right environment. And don't forget the power of reflection. Growth often happens in the quiet moments after the storm, when the argument is past, when the tears have dried, when the heart is calmed down. That's when insight has a chance to enter. Sit with yourself, ask what you learned, ask what you do differently, ask what the emotion revealed about your deeper values, fears, or needs. These moments of reflection are where your wisdom is born. You'll also find that the more you grow emotionally, the more you trust yourself. Not because you never feel overwhelmed, but because you've been there before and found your way through. That trust is powerful. It gives you the confidence to walk into any situation knowing that even if emotions arise, you have the tools to navigate them. You no longer fear the feeling. You respect it, understand it, and work with it. One of the greatest signs of emotional growth is how you treat yourself when you're struggling, when your first response isn't blame, but curiosity, when your reaction isn't shame, but patience, when you fall short and remind yourself, I'm learning. I'll do better next time. That inner voice becomes your greatest coach, your most loyal guide. Progress doesn't mean you never fall. It means you rise faster each time. It means you catch yourself sooner. You repair relationships quicker. You speak more honestly. You take responsibility without punishing yourself. You begin to live with integrity, not perfection, but alignment. Your actions begin to match your values, even when it's hard. Eventually, emotional control becomes part of who you are. Not because you're always calm, but because you've built the strength to remain grounded. Even in chaos, people will notice, they'll feel your presence, they'll trust your leadership, your words, your energy, not because you never feel, but because you've learned how to feel deeply and still choose wisely. So if you find yourself struggling with your emotions, remind yourself, this is the process. You're not falling behind, you're growing. Every setback is a lesson. Every mistake is a chance to refine. Every emotion is a teacher. And every day is an opportunity to become more of who you truly are. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be committed. You need to show up, do the work, and be gentle with yourself along the way. Emotional mastery is not built in dramatic leaps. It's built in steady steps, in showing up one more time, in choosing self-awareness over self-judgment, in living the truth that growth isn't a moment, it's a lifestyle. And that lifestyle is yours to live, one conscious choice at a time.